It took Tesla a tad longer than we were anticipating, but they have finally started opening the supercharging network to all other electric vehicles. Right now, it's just in the Netherlands, but we're already seeing that this is a feature that works and can be activated, and it's not very good. Okay, now, the charging aspect of things works fairly well. Like, it's simple enough that a non-Tesla can pull up and they use the Tesla app. They're able to specify which stall they want charged, and since everywhere in Europe is already using the CCS charge connector, people don't need adapters. They can just pull up to the supercharger, plug in, and tell the app which stall to activate, and it will start charging. Doesn't seem to be charging very, very fast, at least in this stage, but I'm sure that could improve with time. The main issue here, though, is where charge ports are located on a lot of non-Teslas. Between Mustang, Mach-E's, or Audi e-trons, or even VW ID3s, a lot of them like to put their charge connectors on the front near the driver's side, and they technically can pull up to a supercharger stall and get the cable close enough to actually plug in the vehicle and it starts charging, which is great, but that means that that EV is now taking up 2 charge stalls because it's taking up the stall next to where it's actually pulling its power from, which means if a Tesla pulled into the stall directly next to it, they wouldn't have access to the cable. And I wish it was as easy as just making sure that the non-Tesla parks in a specific stall and then reaches the cable all the way over to plug in on the other side, but most of the superchargers, as far as we can tell, can't reach that far across the vehicle. So this network was clearly optimized for Teslas, and I think that the mindset is good, that Tesla wants all chargers to be open and they're not going for this, walled garden experience, as Elon has said, but sometimes that walled garden is pretty dang nice, because now, if Tesla continues to roll this out and they don't really modify their existing superchargers, which honestly I don't really blame them for, that's going to be very expensive and time consuming to go back to every single one of these chargers and make them more like universally accessible to non-Teslas, like adding longer cables or extension cords or having to design them in a way that you can plug in easier. That's just going to be incredibly pricey and time consuming. So my guess is, as to part of the reason why they wanted to roll this out in the Netherlands first, is because maybe they don't often see a lot of high usage superchargers. I mean, I'm sure it happens from time to time, but grand scheme of things, it probably makes sense to start off in smaller demographics and work your way up, because if you started rolling this out in very, very populated demographics where tons and tons of EVs are clogging and waiting in lines at superchargers all the time, that's when you would start to have a problem very, very quickly, because non-Teslas would start taking up 2 stalls. I've even seen some take up close to 3 stalls. So now Teslas aren't going to be able to charge at their own charge stations because the e-tron or the Mach-E or the ID3 is going to be taking up too many spaces. So the idea that the superchargers are technically allowing this and are going to be supporting this idea is quite bizarre, and I think as a fundamental roadmap for the company, it does make sense in the long run for all EVs to be able to charge at any charge network. After all, gas cars can refuel at any gas station, right? Like, they don't need to go to their specific designated gas pump. And in the US, the situation is already going to be much, much worse, because all superchargers have the Tesla connector, whereas all non-Teslas have the CCS connector. So Tesla will probably have to provide an adapter of some kind that maybe they sell, and perhaps they could limit how many of those adapters they're able to produce to not overwhelm the charging network, but still, they're going to have to design these superchargers, I think, fundamentally very, very differently if they plan on non-Teslas using them. And as far as I can tell, all superchargers being installed are pretty much just optimized for Teslas, and I know that theoretically they can send out some software updates or sell some adapters to make them capable of charging a non-Tesla, but I think some more foresight and some more planning definitely needs to go into this before it goes into rapid deployment. And I would honestly not be shocked if non-Tesla supercharging is only available in the EU for perhaps a couple of years before they even start launching this feature in the US. But for the short term, I can kind of understand why a lot of people would still love to do this, because think about it, right? Like, if you're driving a non-Tesla, you probably have a worse efficiency with your powertrain and batteries. That probably means you have worse range, so you're going on some kind of long road trip and the car's not doing as great as you thought because your last EVgo charge station was out of order, so you're driving in the cold and you're trying to get to your destination. Your EV battery is at 1%, it's approaching 0%, and you're kind of eating through your last buffer zone, and you're like, I don't see any chargers nearby, this sucks, this is crazy. And then you stumble upon a perfectly placed Tesla supercharging station. There's maybe like 2 Teslas there, there's like 8 stalls available, and you pull in and you're like, oh my god, thank goodness, my EV is not gonna die on me, I found a supercharger. But then you pull into the station, you find a stall that's open, you grab the connector, you plug it in, and find out, oh wait, Tesla doesn't support your EV, so I guess you're stuck and you gotta call a tow truck. Yeah, that experience is very frustrating and annoying as well. So ensuring that there is a way for a non-Tesla to still charge there and get to their next destination, I think is a very honorable feature, and fundamentally the heart is in the right place. But of course, which scenario in your guys' view is going to be more common? Someone who really needs to charge and doesn't want to get stranded out in the cold, so they're able to charge at a supercharging station with their non-Tesla, and yeah, okay, they took up 2 stalls, but there's still 4 other stalls available. Or do you think the alternative situation is more common, where there's going to be a big line of Teslas all trying to supercharge, but 2 or 3 e-trons are taking up 6 stalls because their connector's on the wrong side? Like, which do you think Tesla should prioritize? What do you think their best course of action is here? My guess is, in the United States, they're probably just going to not open it up for a long time, but they'll slowly start opening it up in Europe so that they can say, see, supercharging supports non-Teslas. We're being open, but at the same time, not that open. All that good stuff. Feel free to let me know what you're thinking down below. Personally, I think this is the main reason Teslas sell so well in the United States, and part of the reason I'm in the market for one. So shout out and big thank you to all of the people supporting me on Patreon to help me make that dream possible, and I won't have to worry about my EV being low on range because it'll have access to the supercharging network and great efficiency overall. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Take care.